They call it the grandma scam, and this San Diego grandmother was a victim, taken for $65,000. We've heard a lot this election season about the Latino vote, but Asian Americans could also be a powerful factor on November 8th.
Picket sign, el picket sign, lo lleva por todo el día.
And we remember San Diego activist musician Ramon Junky Sanchez. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. We're learning more tonight about how San Diego law enforcement helped bust an international crime ring running phone scams on the elderly and immigrants. One of those elderly victims is 86-year-old Beth Baker of San Diego. 2 years ago, she got a phone call from someone claiming to be with the U.S. Embassy who told her she needed to send bail money for her grandson, a member of the U.S. Coast Guard. Her son, Jim Baker, describes what happened next.
And so she went around San Diego County for the next week, taking cash from her savings account and going to various stores, buying the money pack cards, running home, waiting for the man to call back. She would dutifully read him off the numbers, thinking that was perhaps the last amount that he needed, but there was always something more.
Baker wound up buying $65,000 worth of prepaid money cards and even tried to take out a loan to get more cash. That's when her son learned of the scam. Police have arrested a Corona man in the case and say he laundered millions for a criminal ring based in India. Prosecutors say even with the latest bust, the scammers are still out there and warn people to watch out for their elderly parents. The amount of time San Diegans waited when they called 911 fell in August and September, but the city is still shy of a national standard. KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser has more.
The amount of time San Diegans waited when calling 911 continues to fall. The average wait time for a 911 call in August was about 6 seconds. In September, it was about 5. That's down from 15 seconds in April. Mayor Kevin Faulkner says the drop comes from a series of steps his office took to beef up the dispatch center.
Really about improving, operations, keeping the great folks that we had in dispatch, hiring and recruiting more to join them.
But the city is still short of a national standard that says 90% of 911 calls should be answered within 10 seconds. In September, 88% of calls met that threshold. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
A San Diego City Councilman is offering an alternative to a proposed ban on short-term residential rentals in neighborhoods. Chris Cate wants to let rentals continue, but with restrictions. Property owners would have to get permits and have someone responsible for preventing noise and overcrowding, and would be subject to fines if they break the rules. They could also lose their permits for too many violations. Tomorrow, the council will consider another proposal from Sherry Leitner to ban those short-term rentals. Supporters of the ban say it will help protect neighborhoods. We're in the final week of the 2016 campaign. Hillary Clinton's emails and claims of voter intimidation by the Donald Trump campaign are making headlines tonight. The FBI now has a warrant to begin reviewing thousands of newly discovered emails to see if they contained any classified material. Clinton says the FBI should look into those emails and says she's sure they'll reach the same conclusion they did before.
There is no case here. And they said it wasn't even a close call, and I think most people have decided a long time ago what they think about all of this. Now what people are focused on is choosing the next president and commander-in-chief of the United States of America.
Hillary is the one who broke the law over and over and over again. We can be sure that what is in those emails is absolutely devastating. And I think we're going to find out, by the way, for the first time.
The Trump campaign and the Republican Party say is being sued for voter intimidation in 4 states. At least one suit cites rallies where Trump urged supporters to watch voters. The Associated Press says nearly 20% of Americans have already cast their ballots. San Diego voters who complete their ballots before November 8th can drop them off at libraries around the county. Starting today, drop-off service is available during normal business hours. County election officials are urging voters to sign up for mail ballots and return them early because there are so many items to vote on this year. You have until tomorrow to request a mail ballot. There's a lot on the ballot this time, but the California Voter Foundation is reminding people you don't have to vote on everything. Your registered party preference doesn't matter this election. You can vote on whoever you wish. And if you have questions, your county election official can answer them. You can find lots of information online at sdvote.com. Trying to reverse generations of Democratic gains, the Republican Party is stepping up its outreach to the Asian American community. But AP reporter Padaman Andarama says Donald Trump's polarizing rhetoric may have the opposite effect on an increasingly important voting bloc.
At a shopping center in Northern Virginia, volunteers work to get out the vote.
Nobody can read our minds. Nobody can vote for us.
Though Asian Americans represent only about 4% of the electorate, they could make a difference in battleground states like Virginia, Nevada, and Pennsylvania this election.
My name is Kim Ha Lee, and this coming November, I will vote for Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine.
Kim Ha Lee lives with her husband in Woodbridge, Virginia. When she first arrived in the U.S. from Vietnam in the 1990s, she voted Republican, following her husband's lead. But Kim Ha soon became politically active on her own, attending campaign rallies.
I want to understand more and understand something right for the country. So that's why I attend regularly, and from that time, I changed my mind.
She now volunteers for the group Vietnamese Americans for Hillary. Kim Ha's shift represents a broader trend among Asian Americans over the past 20 years, from being mainly Republican supporters to overwhelmingly Democrat. Kim Ha's youngest son, Bin, says the reasons for him are clear.
I believe the Democratic Party aligns more closely with issues that are important to an immigrant family like mine. My dad was a refugee. My 3 older siblings are refugees. In addition to that, I think issues like equality are really important to me as a gay Asian American.
Bin says he doesn't always see eye to eye with his brothers politically, but Donald Trump's polarizing rhetoric on issues like immigration have not gone unnoticed.
My oldest brother is a Republican. He thinks that Democrats give too much, and that's why he doesn't want to vote for Democrats. But he can't support Trump, right? And so he said he just won't vote this election.
But in the wealthy enclave of McLean, a proud Republican.
And this November, I'm voting for our Republican nominee, Donald Trump.
Puneet Ahluwalia also immigrated to the U.S. in the 1990s. The Sikh Indian American focused on building a career in business and was immediately attracted to the GOP.
Having less red tape and using the capitalist system of going out and being an entrepreneur is no better than in the United States and through the Republican values.
He's been active politically for several years, now a member of Trump's Asian Pacific American Advisory Committee. He says his presence is a message to his own party.
The Republican Party is importantly realizing that this community is a very important community. We've got to engage with them, we've got to participate with them, and we have to do a great outreach.
It's something both parties will have to do more of, with Asian Americans now the country's fastest growing racial group. Padmanandarama, The Associated Press.
California voters are facing 2 starkly different options to deal with the state's death penalty. Proposition 62 strives to end the practice, while Prop 66 aims to reform it. KCET's Val Zavala breaks down the details of Prop 66.
Prop 66 in 60 seconds. Ready? Prop 66 aims to fix California's death penalty process. This is one case where both sides agree the system is broken. In California, a prisoner sits on death row for an average of 18 years. The state hasn't executed anyone in 10 years, and the legal costs add up to millions of dollars every year. So the proponents of Prop 66 say, let's fix it by speeding up the process. They would do that by expanding the number of attorneys who handle death penalty appeals and assigning them to inmates as soon as the inmates are sentenced. And the entire appeals process would have to be completed within 5 years. Opponents say these reforms are useless. There are more than 700 people sitting on death row, the backlog is way too great to manage, and speeding things up would mean innocent people might get executed. They have proposed Prop 62 to abolish the death penalty. So a yes vote would keep the death penalty but speed it up. A no vote keeps things the same. And if both of these death penalty props pass, the one with the most votes wins.
You can take a look at all of the candidates and issues on your ballot with the KPBS Voters Guide. It's an interactive website. Just put in your address and you'll see what's on your ballot with links to our coverage of the issues. You can find it at kpbs.org/voterguide. Some residents in El Cajon are just finding out their homes have been situated above a toxic plume for half a century. Now the state is asking some if they want to have the air in their homes tested. With this week's news and numbers from our media partner iNewsSource, Ingrid Lobet reports.
A shallow plume of the chemical trichloroethylene extends for more than a mile in El Cajon, but several residents told iNewsSource they didn't know about it. If they wanted to find out where it was in relation to their home, they would have had to find the right website, the right link, and then page 43 of a 1,000+ page document. Then they would have found this. It's not even interactive. So we made a zoomable map of the plume. It does run beneath some homes. Now some of the mobile home owners have been offered indoor air testing by state officials going door to door. That's because even though it's in the groundwater is only a few feet deep. Concern is vapors can come up through cracks and potentially even into homes. Trichloroethylene is a carcinogen, bad for unborn babies, and it can cause low sex drive and low sperm count in men. The Regional Water Quality Control Board is inviting people to a community meeting about the plume on November 16th. I'm Ingrid Lobet for KPBS News Partner, iNewsSource.
Low clouds and plenty of sunshine for San Diego this week. Heather Waldman has more in tonight's forecast.
Well, a stormy weather pattern continues for the start of this week on the West Coast. For the most part around San Diego, that's just meant additional cloud cover. The rain stayed off to the north for the last couple of days, and satellite and radar shows light to moderate rainfall around Redding down towards San Francisco. The clouds have been more stubborn today, and that marine layer is going to settle back in later on tonight as well. Close-up view shows mid and high-level clouds not producing any rainfall this afternoon. There was a little bit of drizzle earlier today. We are going to stay dry through the rest of this week, although the clouds are coming back tonight as that onshore wind continues. That means winds off the water. Temperatures will drop into the lower 60s. And we could get some areas of poor visibility near the immediate coastline as well. 50 tonight in Oceanside, 60 in San Diego, 57 in Chula Vista. Once you go inland, skies will be more clear and temperatures will fall into the mid-40s in Ramona and Alpine, down to 40 at Mount Laguna, mid-50s once you get out into the desert southwest. Here's that dip in the jet stream with that area of low pressure, bringing cooler air and again the cloud cover and some shower activity for northern parts of the area. Southern California, though, enjoying a dry day, clouds in the morning, then more sunshine later on in the afternoon. Wednesday into Thursday, that trough moves all the way to the eastern U.S. It's replaced by a big ridge of high pressure. That's going to flip the wind direction around, so it's going to be going from land to water. That's a very warm breeze, so the temperature trend goes from cooler than average to close to, if not well above the average, Wednesday, Thursday, and into the day on Friday as well. Here it is. 5-day forecast for the coast as temperatures jumping back into the mid-70s on Wednesday, near 80 Thursday. That'll be the peak of the warmth for many. And notice the clouds aren't nearly as widespread. In fact, shouldn't be much of a marine layer at all, even during the start of the next couple of days. Inland, a bit warmer, close to 90 degrees on Thursday with plenty of bright sunshine. Again, Tuesday looks to be the cloudiest start, and after that, mostly sunny each day and mainly clear each night all the way through the start of the weekend. Into the mountains, it's seasonably cooler, 54 degrees Tuesday, but then we're close to 60 on Thursday. Nighttime lows will be dropping into the low 40s for the next few nights, and we'll enjoy that dry weather all the way through the day Saturday. Final stop takes us into the desert. It's very comfortable Tuesday afternoon, 80 degrees, but as those winds turn more northeasterly, We see temperatures climb back into the middle 80s, feeling more like the 90s later in the day under that bright sunshine, and your lows will stay comfortably cool in the low to mid 50s. Heather Waldman for KPBS News.
California has experienced the largest decline in uninsured children in the nation. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says a new report finds 97% of California kids are now insured.
The report comes from the Georgetown University Health Policy Institute. It says between 2013 and 2015, the number of uninsured children in California dropped by 55%. Most of Obamacare's major provisions kicked in during that time. Today, more than half of the nation's kids who are still uninsured live in California, Texas, and 5 other states. The report finds the vast majority of those kids are eligible for public coverage but aren't enrolled. Children who are living here illegally make up only 5% of those who remain uninsured. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
College counselors say campuses are known as ground zero for mental health issues. Many students suffer from depression or stress. Reporter Caitlin Lewis takes a look at a suicide prevention program touring California that aims to raise awareness about mental health.
It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk about.
Backpacks with messages of loss, longing, and desperate hope tied to their bright fabric rested in the middle of Sierra College's grassy quad. The area took on an eerie calm, the small memorials catching the eyes of passing students, starting a conversation on mental health.
Those ages between 17, 18 through the early 20s, that tends to be a very common time when mental health issues such as depression really come to the foreground.
The organization Send the Silence Packing will tour a handful of California college campuses. The purpose is to let students know it's okay to ask for help.
We are often silenced by society, and so we're here to break that silence.
Organizers of the event know college campuses as the ground zero for mental health. And on days like this one, instead of kids laughing and eating lunch together, there are 1,100 backpacks that stand as a silent memorial, and each one has its own story.
So if we can reach the friends, get them to know the signs, understand how to help their friend, then yeah, suicide can be preventable.
But as one young college student said, in a world of social media, it's hard to ask for help.
But what helped me more was accepting it and having people around me accept that that was part of me now.
Reporting near the Capitol, Caitlin Lewis.
Using Facebook may help you live longer. That's what UC San Diego researchers said today. A 6-month study found that popular Facebook users who also met with their Facebook friends face-to-face live longer than those who were less popular on Facebook, who only kept their interactions online. The study also said Facebook users are 12% less likely to die than someone who doesn't use it. A new study says children conceived with DNA from 3 people are doing well in their teens. Doctors followed up on kids born after an experimental infertility technique combined DNA from mom, dad, and an egg donor. Ted Schaffery of the Associated Press has the story.
Emma Foster is a well-adjusted high school senior. A cheerleader since she was 10 who wants to study engineering in college.
I like math. It's like my favorite subject in school.
Like many 17-year-olds, she sometimes exasperates her parents.
I think her favorite hobby is talking to her boyfriend while she's doing her homework.
The way Emma began her life, however, was unlike any of her peers.
I think it's really cool, actually, because it makes me different and unique.
She was conceived using the DNA of 3 different people: her mother, father, and an egg donor.
It's like the sperm and the egg went together, and then they took the cytoplasm from a donor, and they used that so that way I had a healthy food source or energy source.
The procedure was experimental, so it's actually not done on many patients.
Dr. Jacques Cajon performed the unusual fertility treatment on 33 couples between 1996 and 2001 at St. Barnabas Medical Center in New Jersey. 17 babies were born as a result of the 3-person donation, including Emma.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Susan Foster was overjoyed to give birth after 7 years of trying to conceive through in vitro fertilization.
The feeling of being pregnant, feeling a child move inside of you,
It was just amazing. She's a blessing, and she's a miracle, and medical science made that possible.
Cytoplasmic transfer is the movement of a little bit of cytoplasm from a donor egg into a patient egg. Cytoplasm is the fluid part of the cell. It's the machinery of the cell.
The Fosters later adopted another child after the 3-person treatment was no longer available.
The procedure was stopped in 2001 because the FDA argued that a special permit should be obtained. It wasn't banned, it was just halted.
Cajon followed up with the families recently. The results published this week in the journal Reproductive Biomedicine Online.
Well, last time I saw Emma, she was about 8 cells.
Cajon says the kids have no unusual health problems, and all have good grades. Not everybody is convinced that the new work shows it's safe to use a third party's genetic material, but Emma hopes her story convinces skeptics otherwise.
Hopefully if people were to see this, then they could see that it's like safe and I turned out normal.
A teenager ready for the next chapter in her life. Ted Shaffrey, Associated Press, Livingston, New Jersey.
One last trick or treat. President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama celebrated their last Halloween at the White House today. The Obamas showed off their dance moves grooving to Michael Jackson's Thriller and handed out candy to trick-or-treaters in D.C. The president had a special message for the kids.
On this day at least, you don't have to pay attention to Michelle and healthy eating.
Candy for everybody.
And in fact, the more candy, the later you eat the candy, the better. Because I think that you being up all night with a sugar rush is exactly what your parents are looking for.
Families brought their A-game to the White House event with creative costumes. Some of the most memorable were a baby pope and a lame duck.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour. Our partnership with The Atlantic magazine continues with a look at the role political consultants do and don't play in our democracy. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
A funeral service is being held tomorrow in Coronado for a San Diego sailor killed earlier this month in Iraq. The funeral for Jason Finnan will be followed by a procession over the Coronado Bay Bridge to the Miramar National Cemetery. The public is being encouraged to line the streets along the route. You can find the information on our website at kpbs.org. Ramon Junky Sanchez will inspire generations to come. This is the hope of those who knew the Chicano activist. San Diego filmmaker Paul Espinoza is working on a documentary about the well-known musician who died this weekend.
Well, it's time to shine the light on the young souls of the earth. Let it shine, illuminate the beauty of their worth.
Well, I think Junky is a really important figure in the history of San Diego in general, and certainly the history of the Chicano history of San Diego.
You could take from both sides of the border and combine them and come up with a new style of music. Bilingualism, biculturalism.
I think I met Junky really almost when I first came to San Diego. I've been in San Diego since the late 1970s, and it was almost any kind of demonstration or rally that you'd go to, you'd see Junky playing.
I do not ask for freedom. We are freedom.
Through his music, he really gave life to a lot of these demonstrations. Cesar Chavez talks about Junky as being his favorite musician, and he was often participated with Chavez in many demonstrations up and down the state of California.
Things that we went through kind of led up to this corrido right here that we're going to do for you, called the trilingual corrido, because it's in English, Spanish, and barrio dialect. I was raised piscando uvas, betabeles y melones.
Chicano Park was a community park that was basically created in 1970, and Junky was a student at the time at San Diego State, and the city and the state were planning to They had promised that they were going to create a community park there, but then they reneged on that promise and decided they were going to put in a police station there. And the community really rebelled against that, and they said, no, we're not going to let that happen. They stopped the bulldozers from coming in and creating the park and creating the police station, and they wouldn't leave until a park was formed, which took actually many months. And Chunky was part of that movement.
Let's try some brotherhood.
I think people will be inspired by seeing Chunky's story and by understanding that yes, it is important to speak up, to stand up, and to demand change.
Yeah.
Singing My Way to Freedom is the title of the Junky Sanchez documentary. Filmmaker Paul Espinoza has started a Kickstart account to fund the completion of the project. So far, people have pledged $40,000. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, some San Diego residents are worried about pollution from a terminal expansion. We find out how it will affect them. And on Midday Edition, Tijuana opens its doors to the world for Innovadora. The city will present exhibitions, celebrities, and special events with a focus on Baja's creative arts. That's tomorrow at noon. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.